mathematicians, let's talk about how we can compare numbers when they're in different forms, like one's a fraction, one's a decimal, and how we can put them all in order from least to greatest. So in our notes, we know that we can compare different amounts so long as they're in the same form. So you can see in this example, I'm looking at 5/10 right here versus 3/5. Now, I'm comfortable with 5/10, I'm comfortable with 3/5. Don't really want to compare them when they're like this though, because I'm not 100% sure which one's bigger. So when we are going to compare these, when I'm asking you which one's bigger or which one's smaller, you want to convert. That means change them first so that they are in the same form. Whichever form you choose. Some people like decimals better, some people like fractions better. Keep in mind, if you choose fractions, you need to either be comparing with a common denominator, make them both out of fifths, or a common numerator, which we haven't practiced as much. So I tend to steer clear of fractions. I go for the percents or the decimals. So I have my 3/5 right here. I'm going to multiply it times 2 over 2. That gives me 6/10. I know I can write 6/10 as a decimal because here's the 6 in the tenths place. Now I can say, oh, okay, this decimal versus this decimal, I'm comparing in the same place value. 6 is bigger than 5, so 6/10 is greater than 5/10. Or if you read it from left to right, 5/10 is less than 6/10. When you're putting numbers in order, make sure you read the question. A lot of times we just assume that it's saying least to greatest, but sometimes it's actually saying greatest to least. So I like to write a little L and G to make sure that I'm staying in order, whichever way the question asks me. So let's do an example. Put these numbers in order from greatest to least. So I'm going to write a little G to L. I might even space it out when I see my numbers, starting with the greatest one to the least one. Okay, I have fractions, I have decimals, I have percents. I'm going to try and change them all into percents here. So starting with the 7/20. I know percent means for every 100. So 7 over 20, I'm going to multiply 20 times 5 equals 100. So we're going to multiply this times 5/5. That gives me 100, and 7 times 5 is 35. 35 hundredths is 35%. So the first one is 35%. I don't know if that's going to help me yet. Don't know if that's big or small. Well, I can tell there's a percent here, so it's going to be smaller than 66%. 2 1/10. When you have a decimal, you take your decimal point and you move the point 2 spaces to the right. 1, 2. Fill in any missing spaces with a 0. This is actually 210%. Now, when we're talking about grades, you don't usually get a grade higher than 100%, but sometimes, especially in 7th grade, you'll talk about percent increases, and those can be bigger than 100. So this one is 210%. That's looking pretty big to me. Last number, I'm going to take my decimal, I'm going to move it 1, 2 spaces to the right, put it right there. That is 1%. I'm going to go back and rewrite my greatest. I've got 35%, I've got 210%, 66, and 1. 210% is absolutely bigger than that. Followed by 66%, then 35%, then 1%. If you are looking at a multiple choice question, most likely you created this list, but the answer choices will list it with the original forms that they gave you. So, oops, where did my pen go? There it is. So coming down here, we would say this is 2 1/10. This is 66%. This is 7/20, and this is 0 and 1. Oops, no, 0 and 1/100. So that's probably how you'd see it in a multiple choice form, but you need to change them all to one form, whatever form you choose, before you can compare them and put them in order from least to greatest.